Welcome to our deep dive on something that I think is really relevant to all of us these days, and that is how to actually build connections at work.
Yeah.
Especially, when so many of us are remote or hybrid. And,
Right.
you give us a really interesting article about using Microsoft Teams for this.
Yes.
And it goes way beyond just scheduling meetings.
It does. It's fascinating how much the workplace has changed, even just in the last few years.
For sure.
And this article really highlights how important it is to be intentional about connection.
Yeah.
Not just assume it'll happen organically.
Yeah, I think, everybody listening is probably thinking, okay, I use Teams for calls and for chat, but what's the big deal?
Yeah.
But the article cites research saying that almost half of workers don't think that their companies actually care about building connections.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, right?
Yeah.
And it gets even worse. Apparently 1 in 4 employees feel like they work in a toxic environment.
That's a lot.
Oof.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So the article starts out, hitting us with some stats about how disconnected people are feeling and how that impacts their work. So what jumped out at you there?
Well, I think those numbers about how connection boosts people's ability to do their job, their desire to go above and beyond, that's not just feel-good stuff. It's about real performance.
Yeah.
And, listener, think about how much more you get done when you feel like you're part of a team.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And the article points out this isn't just about being chatty or extroverted. It's literally a human need.
Yeah.
It's like those hunger pangs you get that tell you to eat, but instead of food,
Right.
we're craving connection to survive the modern workplace.
Exactly. It is a need.
Yeah.
And this is where the article gets really interesting. It brings in some social science about what makes connections actually work.
Okay.
First, it's trust. Not just in a vague company value way, but real interpersonal trust.
Okay, so they even talk about this vulnerability loop where someone opening up a bit makes it easier for the other person to do the same.
Right.
Have you ever experienced that where someone being a little vulnerable made you feel closer to them?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
All the time.
Me too.
And then there's this idea of weak ties, which sounds bad,
Right.
but it's actually awesome.
Yeah.
It's about those casual connections we make outside of our immediate teams.
So think about it. It's not always your best friend who introduces you to new things, right?
No.
Sometimes it's that person that you chat with at the gym or in line for coffee.
Absolutely.
That's a weak tie that expands your world.
Exactly. And finally, the article talks about belonging.
Okay.
How we naturally want to be part of groups. The key is making sure your company culture is one people want to belong to.
Right. So we've got the WHY connection matters.
Right.
But the article also gives some really practical how WTs.
Yeah.
And this is where Microsoft Teams comes in.
It does. One of the best ideas, I think, is using Teams to connect people across different departments. Instead of staying siloed, they suggest virtual coffee chats or even pairing people up on projects using Teams.
That's a great idea. And they talk about peer recognition, like using Teams to give shout outs to colleagues.
Right.
Which, by the way, is so much more meaningful than just getting praise from your boss, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then they mentioned using Teams channels for fun stuff. Like sharing hobbies or having those water cooler type conversations that build community.
Okay. The article also mentions this tool called Dewdrops.
Yes.
Sounds kind of cute, right?
Yeah, it does.
But it's actually pretty powerful. It works within Microsoft Teams to automate some of these connection building activities.
It's like having a built-in culture booster. It can pair people up for those coffee chats, facilitate peer recognition, and even spark those water cooler conversations.
Nice. Definitely worth checking out.
For sure.
And it seems like they're really focused on making it easy to use, which is key because who has time for another complicated tool, right?
Nobody has time for that.
And we'll delve deeper into how these tools and strategies play out in practice after a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Stay with us.
We were just talking about Dewdrops and how it can really help with building connections inside Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
And what I think is really cool about it is that it's not just about, random connections.
Right.
It seems to be very intentional about aligning those connections with a company's core values.
That's a great point. I mean, it's not just connecting people just to connect them.
Right.
It's about making connections that are both meaningful for employees and also beneficial for the company.
It's like a win-win.
Exactly.
The article also talks about why it's smart for companies to really invest in employee well-being.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not just a perk.
Right.
It's something that really impacts the bottom line.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more and more evidence showing that when companies prioritize well-being, you actually see things like increase productivity, reduce costs, and, just a more engaged workforce.
They even have this ROI calculator, which I thought was cool.
Oh, yeah.
It lets companies actually quantify the benefits of investing in these tools and initiatives.
It takes out the guesswork.
Yeah, you don't have to wonder if it's worth it.
Exactly.
It's like, here's the data.
Right.
And, one thing that the article points out is that company culture is often this area where people haven't really thought about using technology.
It's true.
Yeah.
You see all these other departments using all these fancy tools, but when it comes to culture, it's been kind of stuck in the past.
It's like, come on, people. It's the 21st century. Let's use technology to build a better culture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think tools like Dewdrops are really leading the way there.
Yeah, moving beyond those, one-off wellness days or those generic surveys.
Right. It's about creating something more sustainable.
Yeah, something that actually makes a difference. The article also gives some really practical tips.
Okay.
First off, they say that, building these meaningful connections takes time.
It's not a quick fix.
No, it's like tending a garden. Exactly. You got to nurture it.
And they also say keep it simple.
Yeah.
Make these initiatives easy to understand and easy to implement.
Otherwise, people won't use them.
Exactly. And finally, actions speak louder than words.
Right.
It's not enough to just talk about culture.
You have to actually do something.
You have to create those opportunities for connection.
Show people that you actually care.
So the main point is that building connections isn't just about creating a happy workplace.
Right.
It's about creating a place where people feel valued and supported.
And inspired to do their best work.
And that's where technology can really play a role.
Yeah. It can help us to connect in ways that we couldn't before.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we'd love to hear what resonated with you.
Yeah. What are your takeaways?
Are there any ideas here that you're going to try out?
Maybe there's someone you could reach out to on Teams.
Yeah, just say hi. Share an interesting article.
It doesn't have to be a big thing.
It's a small step towards building those connections.
And remember, connection isn't just about feeling good, although that's nice.
It's about tapping into that human need for belonging.
Yeah.
And when we feel like we belong, we can do amazing things.
What a great thought. Keep those connection-building muscles flexed.
You never know what can happen when people come together.
Until next time, stay curious.
And connected.
As we've been talking about all this stuff with connection, I've been thinking about how it's not just about, boosting productivity or, just hitting those business goals.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
The article touches on this, but it's important to remember that connection at work isn't just about, being efficient or getting things done faster.
Right.
It's about finding a sense of purpose, feeling like you're contributing to something bigger than yourself.
And it makes you think about those stats we were talking about earlier with people feeling disconnected and, those toxic work environments.
It's like, are we missing something here?
Yeah. Are we so focused on just getting the work done that we've forgotten about the human element?
I think the article's kind of hinting that maybe we have.
And maybe that's why we're seeing those negative consequences.
It could be.
Yeah.
We're all about individual achievement.
Yeah. Meeting deadlines, hitting those metrics.
But we might be neglecting the human need for connection and belonging.
And that's actually hurting us in the long run.
Yeah, it's like trying to run a marathon on an empty stomach.
You might start off strong, but you're going to hit a wall.
Exactly. We need that connection to keep us going, to inspire us, to help us work together and come up with new ideas.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the big question is...
Yeah, what are you going to do with this information?
How it really resonated with you today. What are you going to try out?
Maybe there's someone you could reach out to on Teams.
Just say hi. Share a link to an article.
It doesn't have to be anything major.
Just a small step towards building those connections.
And remember, connection isn't just about feeling good, although that is a nice bonus.
For sure.
It's about meeting that basic human need to belong.
And when we feel like we belong...
You can do incredible things.
I love that. So keep those connection-building muscles flexed.
You never know what'll happen when people come together.
That's all the time we have for today, but thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everyone.